Biel no chime. This is a Nahuatl channel. Is it possible to write Nahuatl without using Latin letters, without using Latin script? When the Spanish arrived in Mexico 500 years ago, the Nahuatl already had a script in use. Now, it was a bit more pictographic, and as far as we can tell, it doesn't contain all the sounds of Nahuatl. So today, let's explore some ways that Nahuatl could be written without resorting to Latin-based letters. Really quickly, some resources y'all can check out are the Mexicolore website, which has a short section introduction on Mexica writing, as well as the Nahuatl blog post by Magnus Faro Hansen called Nahuatl Scholar. And the most recent groundbreaking work with lots of examples in it is this book here, Deciphering Aztec Hieroglyphs, a guide to Nahuatl writing. At the base of Nahuatl writing, we have a lot of symbols that represent nouns, that represent things. And this is easily represented with a particular glyph that represents it. So it's a pretty simple one-to-one correspondence between the symbol and the word that it represents. So the head of a caiman or alligator or crocodile is a sipactli, and it represents the word sipactli. And the same can be said for almost any animal. We have a couple abstract things like olin, which means earthquake, ehecatl, which means wind, and is represented by the spirit of the wind. These symbols here represent a particular word. This is the simple part. However, that glyph can not only represent the word, but also relate to the sounds similar to that word, kind of like a play on words. The root word of that is just ikshi, which means leg. So if you draw a leg, you can represent that word, leg, ikshi. Pretty straightforward. It can also represent a calf or a heel or a thigh. It can also be abstract and represent the meaning to arrive, asi, to arrive somewhere. It can also represent standing up, which is ihka or ihkatok. So it can represent verbs and actions as well as the word itself, as well as words that are not related to that word, but sound similar to it. The combination of all these different factors can be used to create new words, right? When we have the problem of what are you going to do with abstract words, abstract nouns that you cannot easily draw with a glyph. For this, we create the sounds of that word using other glyphs that sound similar to that word. So teeth at the top here is tlan, tlan. Now sometimes tlan can sound like lan, and so that's what it's representing here. Il or el represent liver, elli or illi, and the bottom part represents a skirt, which is quaitl. The whole word is quaitl. So we're not actually using the whole word. These words are giving us clues as to what the word is going to be. So actually, and the word order is not necessarily top to bottom or bottom to top necessarily. You would have to kind of put it together. But this word here would be ilanquaitl. Ilanquaitl. At its maximum expression of Nahuatl writing, these glyphs can be used to also write a short sentence. But there are a lot of tricks involved here. The opening sequence here we have represents ka, and then we have teeth, which is the word tlan, but here it doesn't mean teeth. Here it means the word if, which is itla, also sometimes called just tlan. So they sound similar so that it can be represented with the word for teeth. Then we have a rabbit who's laying down in this position. And so this position is a pun for the word tlacalaquili, which represents taxes when you take it literally, and toch, which represents tochtli, the rabbit. And so here where someone is speaking and is saying Catlan toch tlacalaquili, which means the rabbit tribute is finished, is done, is over. This lord, his name is Yaka Sosoloka, he is sending his tax statements to Wetzin. And in this tax statement, he's saying that they're going to stop paying their tribute of bunnies, of rabbits, which is how they pay their taxes, by giving them rabbits. Of course, anytime someone opposed paying taxes, they would meet their end for rebelling, and so that's probably what happened to this individual. Because of this trick here, where certain glyphs represent the syllable sequence of sounds, you can almost kind of create a sort of syllabary from the Nahuatl writing. Now, the researchers haven't been able to piece all the pieces together. It's possible that the Nahuas never completed the whole syllabary into its own writing system because a lot of the writing was only important for taking note of people's names, noting down tax information, noting down towns that were conquered, and keeping track of information. So because of that, the empire never had the need to be able to write out full-on paragraphs in the same way that we have today. And a lot of these sound sequences are very uncommon. So it's possible that they never were developed. And it's also possible that the answer would be in books that are now destroyed. So in sum, the Nahuatl writing has some glyphs that represent a whole word, some glyphs that represent a sequence of sounds, as well as certain combinations using those puns to give you a hint as to what word is being written down. But I asked the question, if you were to take this syllabary and simplify it in the same way that ancient Chinese hieroglyphs were simplified into their writing system, how would this look like? So I came up with one system of a syllabary, a modern day syllabary that could be used. This system takes the exact syllabary components from the Nahuatl writing system and is just a simplified version of those. However, we do run into one problem, which is what do we do with the glyphs that are missing from the Nahuatl writing system? The syllabary pieces that were not there. We have lots of sounds that we're missing. So one solution would be to take the Maya syllabary and use the pieces that are missing from the Nahuatl writing system and just transfer those over. Then we would just simplify that Mayan writing system. So here's the whole syllabary, including the Mayan glyph components. This is part 1, and part 2 is here down below. So let's see some examples of how this works. A syllabary is a system where a symbol does not represent one sound, but rather a syllable. So if we have the word cacahuatl or cacahuate, that has 3 syllables. Cacahuatl. 3 syllables. So you would need one glyph for ka, reuse that glyph again for ka again, and then a glyph that represents the sound wa. Ehecatl, we have something similar. We need a glyph for a glyph for he, and a glyph for catl. Now, creating the syllabary is not too hard in Nahuatl because Nahuatl does not have that many sounds in its repertoire. It doesn't have as many consonants as English does. It's a bit more simplified in its sound structure. This is what would make a syllabary, in my point of view, one of the easier methods. The only problem I see is that sometimes there are consonants at the end of a syllable, like the TL in watl, or the TL in catl, or the sh sound in ash, or the k sound in itak. So what do we do in these instances where we have a consonant at the end of the syllable? Well, all we have to do is take that consonant and fuse it to the syllable. Now we have 4 consonants to choose from, right? We would have, for example, in siwatl, we would have either tla or tle or tli or tlo. And so to keep things consistent, I just picked the tla endings. So any consonant that ends in a would be used here. For example, siwatl, for that watl syllable, we have the wa syllable already. That's easy. And then to represent the TL that's fused there, we would have the tla syllable. And it's just put underneath it. In tlacatl, we have tla and then a ka on top. And then the TL from tla beneath it, that represents catl. For atl, the same thing, same sound. Tepostli, so we have te, po, and then for the S sound in pos, we have the sa sound, because that represents the word consonant, the syllable final S. Te, pos, and then tli. Let's look at a third system. This system is created by someone who studied Nahuatl as well. This person's called Ed Traeger. He made one called Teclatolo Lostly. This system is considered an abugida type system. In this type of system, we have certain symbols that represent consonants and certain symbols that represent a vowel. Now, how is this different from an alphabet? Well, the difference here is that the vowels are actually placed together with the consonants in a particular place. So it's not a syllabary, it's not an alphabet. For ma, you would have the symbol for M that he created and a symbol for A, which here happens to look like the Latin-based A symbol, but sometimes they don't. So this is a very well thought out system, I think. Now the only limitation here, I think, is that this system is based on Indic scripts from the Southeast Asia. So and this type of system did not exist in Mesoamerica. So in a sense, this would be another foreign-based script, just like Latin is. So I think that's the biggest limitation here, is that at the end of the day, it's still a foreign script, because the Mayan system had a syllabary component, the Nahuatl writing system had a syllabary component, and they also had glyphs that represented particular words as well too. But what's unique is that they used both glyphs and syllabaries in Mesoamerica. So to me, I think a more authentic native writing system would be something that emulates that syllabary component. A fourth system that is important to talk about is a system created by David Vasquez, who recently passed away earlier this year. But this is the only system that I know that was invented by someone who grew up speaking Nahuatl as their first language. So this is an authentically native created spelling system. He never gave a name for his alphabet, but he would often refer to it as Escritura Anahuaca, or Anawak Writing. Now, I've never found a guide posted online, but just piecing it together, it's pretty easy to see how he created this system. So I got the glyphs here that basically represent most of the sounds in his alphabet. And that is going to be the biggest, what I think is one of the bigger limitations here, is that he used some of the Nahuatl-based glyphs and recognized that they were writing, but he converted that syllabary into an alphabet. Again, in an alphabet, one symbol represents one sound. So now we've actually just did the same thing that Latin-based writing systems are doing. So here is a poem written by Nezahualcóyotl called Ximoquetza Xiquitzotzona Intohuehue. So I've got the lyrics and the translation here on the top, so you can all see that for yourselves. Let's see how this would look like with the different writing systems. Something this complex would not easily be written with the ancient Nahuatl pictographs or hieroglyphs. So I think that would be a bit too far out of scope even for myself to be able to reproduce. Using Ed Traeger's method, this is how I think it would be written down. Using my syllabary method, which I think I would want to call Achiten Kakisiotl, which represents the syllabary, which is a close approximation to a syllabary, which is what it's trying to be. This is how that would be written. Now, what's nice about syllabaries is that they can save up a lot of space. Using David Vasquez's method of an alphabet, this is how you would write that paragraph here. Now, my method is just something I invented. Can we actually use these systems in real life? Is that what I'm recommending to do? Not necessarily. This is all just for fun. It's a fun experiment. It's a fun activity and exercise that we just do for fun, basically. If people would want to write with these systems, then go ahead. I'd be more than happy to share what I have and what I've created. And I'll link some resources to Ed Traeger's method as well. And you can use this video to figure out how to use David Vasquez's system. So it's true that using a Latin-based alphabet is kind of like being colonized in one sense, because we're relying on a European-based system of writing that is not native to this continent. On the other hand, to really create another alphabet would require a lot of money to train teachers, to create materials, to train teachers to be able to implement such a system. Not to mention the cost of printing new books in a new writing system. And to be quite frank, there's really no money that the government places towards indigenous languages in Mexico, or very little money towards really revitalizing indigenous languages. So logistically, it would probably be too difficult. Now, I'm no expert, but you all can see that my preference would be to have a syllabary kind of based system, and that the syllabary would borrow the letters and glyphs from the ancient Nahuas and just transform them into something more easier to write with. Now, my system's not perfect, and if anyone would like to volunteer to help create new glyphs or perfect the system, then write a comment here down below and we'll be sure to start getting in communication. So let me know what you think. Which one of these is your favorite writing system? I'll be sure to check out the comments down below. Tlaxcamati no chime. Thanks for watching.